way to think about addiction is it is a disease, and people kind of throw that term around, but it's a disease of the brain. In order to qualify as kind of a disease, the way the medical profession thinks about it is, first, it affects an organ. Secondly, there's a defect to that organ or damage to that organ by virtue of the disease process. And thirdly, there are symptoms.
The misconception is that this isn't a disease. My dad chose to drive to that liquor store and get his bottle and consume that alcohol. My friend did not choose to go to the cancer store and purchase cancer, and now she's dying as a result. So what they don't understand with that is that it took so much more than that, and that it was, when addiction happens for an individual, it's out of that individual's hands driving to the liquor store, if that makes sense. It's sometimes, for them, the need to survive. They have to have that alcohol or the drug to feel normal.
I tried meth for the first time when I was 19, and I knew absolutely that I wanted to do it again. I've found over the years that very few people who try meth say, I never want to do it again. That's how powerful the drug is.
I was born to an alcoholic father, a narcissistic mother, and a pedophile. Those are my parents. I was destined for this. I held on so strong till I was 36.
I started using when I was probably 13 years old, I think. You know, just used some of my classmates. We just, you know, we drank before a dance, school dance or something, and it just really felt good, and I just kind of liked what it did for me, how it made me feel. At the time, I just always wanted more. You know, there was, and I grew up in a family that we had a lot of love in my family. We had a lot of dysfunction in my family too.
My first time ever drinking was, I was just about 17, 4th of July, and that, you know, really was the time that, you know, it opened the doors. I didn't start drinking heavily or getting into drugs heavily at that point, but I mean, that first time after that, you know, I wanted to be drunk. I was never one to just wanted to carry a buzz, you know, so to speak.
I think today a lot of our addictions, whether it's alcohol or drugs, you know, you really can't have one without the other. I mean, you see a lot of the young people coming in and they kind of just use everything. And I really wholeheartedly that addiction is addiction. You know, it's whatever chemical our body reacts to is what our body likes the best.
I used first when I was 13, drinking and smoking weed. It then progressed through my teenage years to coke, acid, hash, street speed.
It's 3 weeks before Christmas, and we don't have any Christmas around here yet. We don't have any Christmas presents. We don't have any Christmas decorations, no Christmas tree. I can go to treatment now, and we won't have any of that. It'll be the most miserable Christmas we've ever had. We won't be together as a family. And I just went on, and I said, otherwise we can wait 4 weeks. You know, the next paychecks, we'll get Christmas ready. We'll have a great Christmas together, and then I'll go to treatment. And my kids started crying, and they said, Dad, we just want you to get help. And it was just, you know, it just took the wind out of my sails. Like they say in the big book, it was a moment of clarity that, yeah, you know, I don't feel I've ever abused them or, you know, but at the same time, it helped me see how much it was hurting them.
Where it hit really bottom was one night or actually it was an afternoon, I had been drinking and I had my kids and I put them down for a nap and I fell asleep, and you know, they woke up and went outside and was playing without me, and the cops got called. The kids weren't taken away. My mom was able to come and grab the kids, but that's, I think, I don't know for sure, but I think that's what got rolling into where recovery became happening, and that wasn't my doing. My sisters and my family as a whole got together and arranged a treatment center for me.
I was drinking in the morning. I would actually drink at lunch sometimes. Go out at lunch on my job and drink. I drank right when I got here. It was a daily. It was every day. And then I drank to pass out. I could never accept that I was an alcoholic. I could admit it, but I could never accept it because I thought I could control it.
I was in the back of a cop car with my hands in handcuffs, and my boyfriend was along with me, and I turned and all of a sudden it was like an epiphany. I looked over at my boyfriend and I said, "This is it. I'm never going to do this again. This is the end for me." You like to believe when you're using that you're not hurting anybody else, you know, that you're just having a good time. But I was hurting my children and my family. You know, you lose your friends, you can't hold a job, you have trouble paying your bills, and your self-esteem just plummets.
I've heard so many stories in these groups of, you know, people with amazing, like, stories of overcoming their addiction, overcoming hardships, and my story isn't quite that, like, dramatic, but I think it just also proves that so many of us have different degrees of bottoms.
I was a chronic relapser. Being a medical professional, they sent that information to the board. So I sat in front of the board of nursing while they said, "You need to take a year off. You are a mess." This was right after my brother committed suicide. 2 weeks I buried him, and I'm sitting in front of the board like, you know, just a flaming hot mess. And, you know, I thought, man, they're so nice, thank you. You know, I really do still need to get my act together. There again, there was the other piece. I'm a nurse, I'm a mom. I didn't have it anymore, nothing. So at that point is when I had that decision again. I can't stand this. Everything I've ever thought I was is gone. If I pick up and use again, I'm not coming back from it. I'm not. Or it was, you know what? Dig my heels in and really, really put 2 feet into the program, which I did. And I'll have 2 years sober next month. And it's been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
This is the first time I've ever been in anything I considered recovery. In the past, when I had sobered up for brief periods, I never even knew what recovery really was, and I never considered it sobering up because it was always more like hitting pause than stopping. You know, I always kind of figured I'd be drinking again, and you know, going through treatment and continuing my recovery when I got home, it you know, that's where the change, you know, kind of occurred, and I decided to dedicate myself to this more full time, you know.
We feel hopelessness, we feel guilt and shame, you know, everything the addict goes through we feel too. You know, when they're not sleeping, we don't sleep. You know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in an addicted family, and just to know that there is hope, and just be able to support them the best way that you can.
All these years I would say I'm leaving, but I always came back. I'm going to do this, and I'd never do that. And I'd lie for him. I'd lie for him when we had family things going on and saying he didn't feel good today, or he got home from work late, and I was lying. I was lying to all these people. So I was just as much a part of it as he was. only I was doing all my stuff sober, and he was doing his stuff drunk. I've learned to use the Al-Anon program with other things, with cancer. I learned to get rid of my resentments from my accident that I had the years before I even got there. I'm a cancer survivor of 14 years now, and so I was in recovery when I had cancer, and that helped me recovery helped me get through it because I needed to live one day at a time.
Me and my wife were going shopping that weekend, and I was telling her that, God, I'm so glad I didn't get as sick as some of these people I work with. I mean, they're spending their paychecks, their kids don't have diapers, they're losing their electricity. And she looked at me and she says, where were you? You know, and for the next 30 miles, she gave me example after example, that was me, you know. That was me spending money that should have been paid on bills. Her going to ask the landlord to give us some more time for the rent, or, you know, our parents to help with the light bill, get the lights back on, and, you know, all that stuff. And how can you forget that? How could I have ever forgot that? I went through that. But, you know, addiction, to me, that part of addiction is still there even after you sober up, that denial part. You know, you don't want to think it was ever that bad after, you know, I was 14 years clean when I started working here, and it's like, I didn't think I was as sick as them people, but in reality, I was just as sick as they were.
You know, my house is a mess right now, so I'll think, God, just do some meth for the weekend, man, this place is gonna be sparkling. Won't have to eat or sleep enough, it'll be just sparkling. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Because I'll think it's a really good idea. And I'll go, okay, Rochelle, how many other people in the United States probably thinks that doing math just to do housework is a good idea? Yeah, that's probably not. This is, you know, I have this, you know, in my brain going on, and it's not left me yet. A lot of people on the program say it never does. But I got all these support and tools and everything to really think that through, because I'll think anything's a good idea.
Most of all, just being encouraging to, you know, stay positive and you know, things happen. Sometimes we fall short, you know, but we just continue to seek the good in everything, even if we're not doing so well.
The parties and the fellowship, and all the things that we have going on in recovery, and camping, and I mean, we do so much stuff. Sobriety is fun, but you gotta get involved, and it is hard too. You know, it's getting out of your comfort zone.
Recovery is work, and it does mean changing everything, but you never ever have to be alone. Never. Once you get into recovery and you start going to meetings and you meet people, you know, there are millions of people in this country that just want to help. Yes, change is scary and it's work, but it's 1,000 times worth it. And that lifestyle will always be waiting out there for you. If you decide you don't like recovery, you can always go back. But I've never met a person who even came into recovery that went back and relapsed, that didn't come back to that came back to the program and said, boy, it was awesome out there. You know, once you get a taste of recovery, it's of the gifts and the blessings that it brings you. You know, I don't know a lot of people that are happy when they go back. You know, and if they're still stuck out there, it's because they're just that, they're stuck. You know, change doesn't have to be scary. You know, it's 100 times worth it.